It is 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. The former England football manager Sven-Goran Eriksson is remembered as a true gentleman of the game after his death at the age of 76. All are accounted for after a large fire engulfs a tower block in East London.
There was no fire alarms, nothing went off. So when we ran out of the flat, we just saw some neighbours, smoke coming out of the door.
As Russia unleashes a barrage of missiles at Ukraine, we have an exclusive report on the resistance fighters behind Russian lines. Mourning and expecting more violence. We're in southern Lebanon after one of the biggest exchanges of fire in months between Israel and Hezbollah. Thousands of people gather and party in West London for the final day of the Notting Hill Carnival. And
I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now.
Oasis, one of the bands that defined Britpop, are set to reunite, with the Gallagher brothers teasing an announcement early tomorrow. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. It was only in January that Sven-Goran Eriksson said that he had, at best, a year left to live after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. But today, his family confirmed that the disease had claimed his life. The 76-year-old was the first foreign-born manager of the England men's football team, taking charge of 67 matches between 2001 and 2006. Prince William is among those leading tributes, describing Eriksson as a true gentleman of the game. Our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, reports.
Sven-Goran Eriksson doubted whether England could ever have a foreign manager. Undeterred by hostility, the appointment was groundbreaking. For a suave Swede, his 5 years in charge were frenzied and thrilling in memorable matches. His 5-1 thrashing of Germany in 2001, winning over some doubters. It was rarely dull, on or off the pitch, in this era of the golden generation. And after his terminal cancer diagnosis, there was a visit at home in Sweden from his former captain. Today, David Beckham paying tribute to a passionate, caring, calm and true gentleman. Beckham provided this iconic moment of the reign. Yes! A free kick sealing 2002 World Cup qualification. They were knocked out by eventual champions Brazil, and quarter-finals were a constant in Eriksson's time, losing to Portugal at Euro 2004 and again to them at the 2006 World Cup. Eriksson often seen as falling short with such talent, but no successor has won a trophy for the Three Lions. And his star striker Wayne Rooney mourned a special man, adding, "Thanks for the memories and all your help and advice." Frank Lampard wrote, "I will always be grateful to him for the trust and support he gave me in my England career." And the FA president, Prince William, added, "My thoughts are with his family and friends, a true gentleman of the game." It was an illustrious footballing career that began in Sweden's lower leagues, before winning European silverware and domestic trophies in Portugal and Italy. Highly coveted when English football was at a low ebb at the start of the new millennium, needing a fresh approach.
He achieved a lot of success through his career, but I know how proud he was to be the first foreign coach of the England national team, and he treated that job so seriously, as much as any English person could have cared about it.
But often it meant contending with fame as much as football, a celebrity culture growing around the team, bemusing Eriksson, whose own private life was far from private, tabloids splashing on relationships with an FA secretary, and fellow Swede TV presenter Ulrika Jonsson. Another sting saw the News of the World deploy the notorious fake sheikh to trap him in a fictitious approach by Aston Villa.
I was sacked because of that. I would have been sacked anyhow after the World Cup 2006, because that was not good enough quarter-final. So I understand that.
But he returned to English football, managing Manchester City and Leicester, always happiest in the dugout. It was in 2023 that Eriksson was forced to step down from his last role back in Sweden due to ill health. And his final footballing wish was revealed to Sky News in January.
I always wished to be the manager of Liverpool, and that will not happen.
But it did. Managing a Liverpool Legends match at Anfield. There was no anger in his dying days, there rarely was.
One day it will take you. Before that day, live. Instead of sitting down thinking about what and when will it happen.
Prejudice and hostility was overcome to show you don't have to be English to manage England. Sven-Goran Eriksson brought charm and charisma to one of football's most challenging jobs.
Rob is here with me now, and Rob, on a day when plenty of world-famous people have been paying tribute to him, it was his family who let us know that he died, and his family who were with him when that happened.
Yes, back home in Sweden, where he spent his final months, and his family also reflecting that, however distressing it was for them to live through this awful period with Sven knowing he only had months to live. It allowed him to be celebrated, not only in Sweden, but right the way across Europe and the footballing world. And he reflected and said in this statement how he was grateful to hear all of this while alive and to hear such appreciation and joy of his career. It was in Italy, in Sweden, and indeed in Anfield, as we saw that the life of Sven-Goran Eriksson was celebrated in recent months. And what a life, very colourful. He was rarely out of the limelight as England manager, whether through his footballing exploits or indeed off the pitch as a perhaps unlikely romantic. But he certainly did achieve so much in the game, and that's what attracted him to the England job and why the FA overcame such hostility to try to appoint him. He was winning trophies in Sweden with unfashionable clubs, and that's what attracted him to then Benfica in Portugal, then in Italy, achieving so much success when Italy was really the dominant league in world football. And then with England, there were only fine margins really in those quarter-finals where he did fall short at the World Cups and the Euros, and ultimately he brought such great joy and excitement back to the England team that was not there. He picked up the team from quite a low ebb, and still, of course, the Three Lions have not won another trophy since '66, so it showed just how tough the challenge was he took on and how he managed to deliver a lot of key moments, incredible moments, and it's why he's been so fondly remembered tonight across the entire world of football.
Rob, many thanks. Now, everyone has been accounted for after a huge fire engulfed a tower block in southeast London, which was known to have fire safety issues. 20 people were rescued and 80 were evacuated from the building in Dagenham after the blaze broke out in the early hours of this morning. The property had been undergoing remedial work to remove and replace what's been described as non-compliant cladding. Sky's national correspondent Tom Parmenter reports.
As the trauma and smoke started to clear, one hard fact emerged. The Spectrum building in Dagenham was a known fire risk. Another block of flats, another tragedy narrowly avoided. Some residents were woken up by the smell of smoke at 2:45 in the morning. Others were alerted by their neighbours' screams. Nobody, it seems, heard a fire alarm. With no time to grab anything, they just ran.
A lovely couple knocked on my door and got me out my flat. As we went down the fire exit, we realised that the fire was at the back, so we had to run. And we realised that the fire gate had been padlocked shut. It felt like there was no way out. It felt like I was going to die then and there.
Sydney has called this place home for the past 4 years.
No alarms went off. They've gone off so many times for no reason. So many times for no reason. And then the time we need them to go off, they didn't go off. That block needs to get shut down and we all needs to get housed. And I hope they're as angry as me.
225 firefighters responded, carrying out multiple rescues. Over 80 residents made it to safety. One family told us they made a last-minute decision last night not to return home to their flat.
I said, let's go about the kids. I go over there, my small nephew, he starts sleeping. And after I say, okay, I'm staying there. So there's no point to wake her up. So thanks God, she saved us life.
For all the shock and confusion, this was a building the London Fire Brigade knew had failed previous safety checks.
What I wouldn't want to do is preempt an investigation. This was a very, very dynamic incident, and clearly it's going to require a very complex investigation, not only to get to its cause, but to get to an understanding of the fire spread.
A London Fire Brigade enforcement notice from last year highlighted 5 fire safety failures at the Spectrum building. including a failure to establish an appropriate emergency plan. There is a growing list of questions for the investigators here. The scaffolding is up because they were in the middle of replacing non-compliant cladding around the building, as they are doing for tower blocks across the country, to improve fire safety. A different type of cladding was a major factor in the Grenfell disaster that claimed 72 lives in West London 7 years ago. Some campaigners are furious at the lack of progress on fire safety and have called on the Labour government to prioritise it.
There are too many loopholes at the moment. There are too many people sort of jumping on a bandwagon and misdiagnosing the problems. And again, this is likely to happen when you've got over 3,000 buildings left to remediate and only a limited number of credible contractors that can actually do the work.
Some families in Dagenham have lost everything, but help and support was soon on hand. The residents and the investigators here will want to know just how safe this building was. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, East London.
At least 3 people have been killed in Ukraine as Russia launched what Ukraine's Air Force commander has called the largest single air bombardment of the entire war. Russian cruise missiles crashed into the Dnipro River next to a hydroelectric power plant outside Kyiv after officials reported a wave of missile and drone attacks. Ukrainian President Zelensky says more than 100 missiles and around 100 drones were launched by Russia, targeting 15 regions of the country. He said there had been a lot of damage in the energy sector, with the Kremlin claiming the attacks were targeting energy infrastructure vital to Ukraine's war effort. Well, in an exclusive interview with Sky News, the commander of Ukraine's resistance movement has described how a network of civilians is fighting behind Russian lines. He described how their covert operations include intelligence gathering, sabotage and eliminating Russian forces. The commander also said that Ukrainian forces have linked up with Russian civilians who are opposed to Vladimir Putin. He was speaking to our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes.
Sabotage, spying and supporting Ukraine's conventional troops in their fight. Wherever Russia invades, a covert network of Ukrainian civilians is watching and making their presence behind Russian lines known. This the symbol of a growing resistance movement. There's even evidence of Ukrainian resistance inside Russia. This clip, shared with Sky News, purportedly shows an attack on a transmitter in the border region of Voronezh. Now, for the first time, the commander of Ukraine's resistance has agreed to speak on camera about this top-secret dimension of the war. A Special Forces colonel, we're calling him Mykola.
Among us are those people who calmly, quietly, covertly perform their tasks without expecting a quick reward or glory. The main motivation of our people, all of us, is freedom. We want to defend our country. The Russians will have to either kill us all or leave.
Is it the whole of society? Is it young, old, women, men, disabled, healthy? Can you just describe who are the resistance?
The representatives of the resistance movement, in fact, are all conscious Ukrainians now, and there are men and women of different ages among them. I can't tell you a specific number because this information is secret, but I can tell you that there are thousands of these people.
What kind of operations are they doing?
We get information about Russia's occupying forces. We also try to cut the enemy's communications. We block their logistics, so that units on the front line are hungry or have limited ammunition. We try to kill Russian military personnel at all costs and destroy their military equipment.
Run by Ukraine's special forces, the resistance movement is raising its profile. A new video on social media aims to promote their work and attract more recruits. The group is active inside Crimea and occupied parts of southern and eastern Ukraine. As a precaution, it's also expanding into areas that may yet fall into Russian hands. The commander says anyone is welcome to join, They just need to be loyal and brave.
Звісно, ця робота, яку виконують наші люди, вона є небезпечною. Багато з
Of course, the work that our people are doing is dangerous. Many of our people have died during their work, and many of them end up in Russian prisons. But this does not scare us, because our goal justifies the losses we are now suffering.
He says Russian civilians who oppose Vladimir Putin have also started to get in touch.
And so have they started doing acts of sabotage inside Russia as part of the resistance?
це є частиною руху опору, але їхнього руху опору проти режиму Путіна. Це не є.
It is a part of the resistance, but their actions against Putin's regime are separate from our movement, which is organised from within our country. They are already learning from us, and they are already starting to use our methods within the Russian Federation. We see great potential in those things.
Back inside Ukraine, the focus of the resistance against Russia's invasion is clear. But the full scale of the actions by those involved will likely stay secret until long after the war ends. Deborah Haynes, Sky News, Kyiv.
To the Middle East now, Israel and Hezbollah appear to have pulled back from the brink of an all-out war after one of their biggest exchanges of fires in a long time. The Lebanese militant group launched hundreds of rockets and drones at Israel yesterday morning, but Israel said the attack was largely thwarted by a preemptive strike involving around 100 jets. A funeral was held in southern Lebanon today for one of the fighters who was killed. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi reports.
As rousing music blasted through the town of Nabatea in southern Lebanon, people came out to pay their respects and show their grief for the fallen fighter. Ayman Idris, a militant with Amal, a Shiite group allied with Hezbollah, was killed in Israel's ferocious preemptive strike. The mood here is unforgiving, and it's likely the cycle of violence in this disastrous conflict will not end anytime soon.
The negotiation with Israel will never end. We will always fight Israel. We will always defend our south against Israel, no matter what happened, until Israel is gone.
The fighter's son was comforted as he said his final goodbye to his father. Other relatives lay over the coffin in tears. Hezbollah and its allies have been fighting along the border with Israel for months. Yesterday's violence, retaliation for the assassination of their top commander, was a moment many in the region were dreading.
These funerals are happening nearly every day in southern Lebanon. And although both sides have indicated that this latest phase of escalation is over, the cross-border fire between Israel and Lebanon continues, and with it the possibility that a much bigger war could be sparked.
The fear of a broader war is being felt across Lebanon. And in the capital, Beirut, there's an uneasy calm, but people are worried about what lies ahead.
The situation is uncertain. After what happened yesterday, after the Hezbollah response to the killing of Shukr, we are back to square zero. What it does mean, we are back in this situation of limited war, not full-blown war, but limited war with all the risk to slide into a full-blown war at any moment for any miscalculation that could happen.
Much of southern Lebanon is now deserted. Tens of thousands of people have fled for safer areas, as they have across the border in northern Israel. A dangerous moment then may have passed for now, but the risk of further escalation remains. Alex Rossi, Sky News, southern Lebanon.
Also tonight, 20 villages and the homes of at least 50,000 people have been wiped out after a dam burst in eastern Sudan. Those numbers are according to the Reuters news agency, which is citing United Nations officials. So far, the death toll has been put in the dozens, but is expected to be much higher once more crews reach the disaster zone, which is 25 miles north of Port Sudan. It brings further destruction and misery to a country already suffering through civil war, with millions displaced. In Italy, prosecutors have placed the captain of the super yacht Basian that sank off the coast of Sicily under investigation. 7 people, including its owner, the British entrepreneur Mike Lynch, and daughter Hannah, died in the tragedy last Monday. Captain James Cutfield had already been questioned. Now, as many as 1 million people have taken to the streets of West London over the bank holiday weekend for the Notting Hill Carnival, one of the biggest street parties in the world. But amongst the revelry, there's been a sizable police presence with 145 arrests. A 32-year-old woman remains in a critical condition in hospital after being stabbed at the event yesterday. Sky's Rachel Venables reports.
To the beat of steel drums and samba bands, adorned with glitter and feathers, Carnival partied its way through Notting Hill.
You know, you get people from all walks of life, you know, be it, you know, background, every race, color, creed, and that is what Carnival is all about.
This celebration of Caribbean culture is the largest in Europe, running since the 60s. The climax is Monday's parade, with thousands of performers dancing past the judges.
We don't want to see every band doing feather and sequence. I judge in Trinidad, and I have seen enough feather and sequence to last me a lifetime.
It doesn't have to be the biggest, the most expensive. It's about creativity and innovation and telling a story.
Tell me a story. Woo me.
For the around 1 million people who come to Carnival, this is a party, but it's also a massive policing operation to keep them safe. Around 7,000 officers have been on shift through the bank holiday weekend, and they say they've had to deal with outbreaks of violence still and knife crime.
With a 4th stabbing reported on Monday, at least 1 woman is still in hospital fighting for her life after being attacked yesterday. In an impassioned statement, the Met Police said, "We are tired of saying the same words every year. We're tired of telling families that their loved ones are seriously injured or worse. We are tired of seeing crime scenes at Carnival." But people say they won't let the violence ruin their day.
I don't feel any uncomfortable while I was watching the carnival.
Whether or not we admit it or not, we want the same thing. Safety, joy, family.
I really like the costumes and the dancing and the music.
Extra police stop and search powers are now in place until the early morning, as this party looks set to continue long through the night. Rachel Venables, Sky News in Notting Hill.
Could one of Britain's biggest rock bands be making a comeback? It looks pretty likely, because the Gallagher brothers have sent Oasis fans into a frenzy, both sharing the same video on their X account, suggesting an announcement tomorrow morning around about 8 o'clock. From their hometown of Manchester, our chief North of England correspondent Greg Milam has more.
All it took was this post from Oasis, a flickering date and time, and after 15 years, the wait is almost over.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you.
They are one of the biggest bands in British music history, a sound that defined the 90s.
I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now.
With a look that made Britpop and a style the very essence of cool Britannia. But the fights and the friction, the family dynamic of Noel and Liam was as much part of the story. The band finally split in 2009. In the city where they're part of the fabric, for fans who were there at the beginning, this news is music to their ears.
For us in Manchester, and to see local boys doing well and taking us along with them and making unbelievable, powerful stadium anthem rock music was just amazing at the time.
This is where Oasis played their first gig. The Boardwalk Club is now history. That night in October 1991, a ticket to see them here would have cost you £3. They played a set of 4 songs to an estimated crowd of 20 people. But within 3 years, their first album had got into the UK charts at #1, and it was at the time the fastest-selling debut album in British history. But the breakup was bitter, Noel describing the moment he knew it was over.
The incident in Paris, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, really. And I remember sitting in the car outside the fence of the festival site with my security guard. He turned around and he said, "What are we doing? We're staying or going?" And in that instant, I was done with it.
But for years, the rumours of a reunion have persisted. John Robb recently interviewed Noel. Why now? Why are they doing this now, do you think?
I mean, they could easily just carry on doing 2 solo careers. I mean, it's not like they're struggling. They're both getting #1 albums, don't they? I think they're brothers, aren't they? And I think at the end of the day, no matter how much your brother annoys you, you still kind of love your brother as well.
The rumoured dates at Wembley and in Manchester could net tens of millions. But for many, hearing the soundtrack to their youth again live will be priceless. And it seems it is definitely, not maybe, happening. Greg Milam, Sky News, Manchester.
There had to be a pun in there somewhere, didn't there? Let's get the latest sports news now.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Who's going to win the league this year? Jamie?
Man City.
And Gary?
Arsenal.
OK. You said the same last year.
I did.
What makes you convinced, again, that they can pip City to the top spot?
I mean, my reasoning last year was they're coming off the back of the treble for City, thinking that that might have an impact on them at certain points in the season, the demands, the expectation, maybe the injuries, the games they played, but they're unbelievable. To do what they did, I think they won the last 9 games, didn't they, which is just special. And Arsenal had the most incredible season, so I wasn't a million miles away. They're just getting better.
Points away.
Yeah, they're getting nearer. And I don't know, I feel they'll do it. I feel they'll do it at a certain point. And look, you can never write. He could 100% be right because of what Pep Guardiola does. He wins all the time. But I feel that Arsenal are getting so close and they're so consistent that this could be the year.
Are you becoming less certain about Manchester City?
No. I mean, they go to Chelsea yesterday. I mean, whatever we talk about Chelsea, it's still Stamford Bridge. They've still got big name players. Arsenal are obviously one of the top teams in the country. But in the last couple of years, when they've gone for the league, I think I'm right in saying that they've gone out of the domestic cups quite early and haven't got to like a final or a semi-final in Europe. And I think this group of players are good enough to they should be getting to the semis of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup and attacking all the competitions the way Man City do and Liverpool did in the past under Jurgen Klopp. Because I don't think it's acceptable now for a team this good not to win a trophy this season.
I'm not sure I'm in agreement with that. Do you not see the similarities between the journey that Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool went on, where they felt like they were just getting there and eventually they got them? Do you not feel like there's a little bit of that same sort of...
Yeah, but my point being is, though, Liverpool was still attacking. Liverpool won the Champions League before they won the league.
Look, forget the trophy bit. I'm talking about the league
Yeah,
journey.
I get that, but the point I'm trying to make is City is still going like further in competitions. Arsenal should be doing that, and I think that will take a little bit out of them than maybe what we see in the league.
Could you see, Gary, Arsenal doing something spectacular, like Liverpool did, ultimately, getting beyond 90, 95 points even?
Well, so Liverpool, to win the league, Liverpool, in the first 27 games before it stopped for